Just outside laying down some additional salt before the snow hits. I do that all the time. I put salt in between the layers and everything. I'll go out there and salt several times. If I'll try to keep up with clearing it. But every time I go out to clear it, I'll put out a layer of salt. I'm using this other stuff. I don't know if it's as good, but it's below zero stuff, but 15 below or something. I don't know if that's Celsius or the other one. I don't know. It's 15. So, okay, but the court screwed up. There's no way to authorize obstruction of justice as protesting. The statutes define what they're doing as obstruction of justice, stalking, irregardless of whether it's prosecuted. A federal court cannot order federal agents to allow stalking, obstruction of justice. There's another one in there. I guess impeding, but also assault. And there's a couple other things in there. Again, the state is not protecting or not protecting the community. I mean, they're going to say it's ICE. But I guarantee there were people where Mrs. Good was at, beeping her horn like a nutbag, cutting the lane off. Right. I guarantee they called 911 on the lunatic. And if they would have came out there and do what they usually do, what are you doing, man? I'm protesting. No, you're not. You're violating traffic laws and noise laws. She'd have had her vehicle impounded. And she'd still be alive. Not because local police are any more skilled than ICE officers, because the governor and the mayor said, obey our police. Don't obey ICE, because they're not really law enforcement. That's why. Right. Plus, it wouldn't have got to the crescendo. I guarantee somebody called right away. I guarantee somebody works night shift and they called. I guarantee it. Right. That federal court cannot force federal agents to allow that, to protect that. You're saying there's no protesters that can protest police officers, law enforcement officers driving down the street. None. Zero. There's no such thing. The original law that you're using, and now have mission creeped up illegally, unlawfully, and maybe impeachable, is the fact that they can film quietly. That's all that the Supreme Court agreed with. The only thing I think they actually modified it by saying that a perimeter is allowed. Right. The only thing that was ever allowed in an active law enforcement scenario was quiet filming. That's it. You got Mrs. Good killed because you want to play games. Don't try to put it on the feds. That's the only thing the Supreme Court, there is no right to protest. That's bullshit. There is a right to assemble. There is a right to freedom of speech, but we all know freedom of speech is limited by whatever laws restrict it. Even freedom of assembly. Trespassing. You can't assemble someplace you're trespassing. That's a public place. That is a law enforcement operation. Do you understand? You're like saying, okay, so if you want to commit a hate crime in a public place, you're allowed to do it, right? If you want to lynch a black man and you're in a public place where everybody else is, you can lynch the black man, right? Because you're in a public place, right? And all your people assembled to lynch the black man. Martin Luther King likes that one. I knew he's around. I couldn't see him until just now. Right. Well, you're disgracing his name. Same reason why Jesus stops by. You're disgracing his name. even though it's not really Jesus' name. I go vote. So freedom of assembly in a public place is limited. Again, in Minnesota, by the laws that they use and things they've done with Antifa and everything else, that, again, pattern of practice. We also have I guess that's not the way to use that for something else, but their pattern of practice, I guess, would say, is that's an unlawful assembly. No, you don't need to help ICE catch immigrants, but you are required to maintain law. You can't stop enforcing law. There's nobody else to do it. Don't you understand? You're there. It's like, oh, you're going to call 911 and we're going to come running. But you're the effers, the local, state, and local police that effed my life off, effed my mother off, harassed my mother, harassed my family. You're in place. That's why you answered a 911 call. If I was in place, there would be at least 50% less 911 calls, I guarantee you. At least 50%, just by replacing somebody with me. Because I am such a thing. Everybody knows the reason you don't want me in your community is because the narcos that were paying you were whining. And the sex traffickers. Right. It's harder to say sex traffickers when we're doing this argument because they willed that part away. Because their excuse was, well, they're narcos, but you're all dangerous sex fiends. Because they had questions like, why are all these people narcos? You have statements against Larry that don't make any sense, but they're all narcos. They didn't say narcos, but narcotics distribution, involved in narcotics use or distribution. Well, but they're not like sex traffickers. He's a sex trafficker. No, he's not. That's where they go. They're stupid. No, because you'll pay in hell for it. You're really stupid. You got $1 million for lying, but you're going to pay in hell over you. You even know the plan at $1 million. It's ill-gotten gain. You have to pay back all your ill-gotten gain in hell. That's how it works. There's actually a mechanical system that sends you to hell for that kind of stuff, but you put a moratorium on it. Like, if the system worked right, you wouldn't do it. You'd only get so far, and then you'd be like, oh, I'm out of this shit, because it would destroy your life. That's the system that God believed was here, and was here at certain points in history, not all the time. So there are people getting paid for doing evil and getting debited for doing good. Real good, not some illusion. Right, Osteen? I used to talk to Osteen in the line. Never got directional communication going well, but say little blurbs. Right. No, Joel Osteen, I am not God. I'm God's friend. If that was Joel Osteen. I may have finally received something. Are you God? I get that one. Right. There was actually something I read one time, and Hashem was like, that's you. No, somebody was wondering if something was God, and it wasn't. It was me. But, I can't speak to you without God. So technically, it's God with me kind of thing. So the reality is that judge screwed up. Her ruling was totally illegal. She's trying to regulate how law enforcement treats people committing the crimes that I spoke about. That she can't do that. And then she talks about peaceful. They can't protest an act of law enforcement operation. That's the first part. And as far as if a peaceful, here's an example. There's a there's a brawl going on in a bar. And I walk over to where they're brawling and I stand there and a cop ends up, manhandling me. I'm a peaceful person just standing in the bar, but just standing in the middle of the fight. Right. It's a scam. The judge may be in on the scam. There are no there are no peaceful protesters when there's violent things going on. Right? Again, the gun with that guy. I told you those are some of the things that they're concerned with. He produced the gun. I mean, he's wrong right there. First, I'll tell you something. I told you years ago, Hughes and Henry and all them plotted against me. So a sheriff would have normally, for anybody, or a constable, called the person and say, "Hey, I got this thing. You got to pay this fee." And my wife was supposed to pay it. And we were separated. Of course, the deep state's screwing me. So anyway, being a deputy U.S. Marshal, they usually call you up and say, "Hey, deputy, you have this outstanding fee." And I would have said, "Oh, my wife was responsible for that." So he where was I going with this? Oh yeah. So I had to go see him. And I figured it was, I just didn't feel right. I was like, nah, I'm not going to bring I always bring my gun. And I'm like, I'm not going to bring my gun. So again, if I was a protester, I wouldn't bring my gun. Okay? Even if I was a law enforcement officer, I wouldn't bring my gun. You don't bring your gun to those things. Again, if I'm going to meet the constable, he's the law enforcement entity. Right. So what they did is I was in this one town later on, after I left the Marshal Service, I got some pizza. I may drop my kids off or something. I grabbed some pizza. And he comes in. Deep State was trying to push my buttons. The other constables called him a piece of shit. Right. So I got the opposite of professional courtesy. Right. But again, I'm doing the right thing. I didn't bring my gun. So if I don't bring my gun to those type of things, you don't bring your gun to it. Right. I mean, he pulled it out. You don't bring your gun because what if it drops out? What if they frisk you? Right. What about the Republicans? Well, if they presented it, they'd have been shot too. You're not going to go, "Oh, you're MAGA? Okay, you can put that gun in my face." Not only were they stalking me, they set me up with that kind of shit too. Everybody knows a deputy as marshal for like a couple $100 in divorce court fees doesn't go get locked up. Right. Yeah. Hughes might be paying for it already in hell. I don't know how long he lived. He's probably already in hell. Yeah, I don't stalk them like they stalk me. Never did, never will. Okay, Larry. So again, the first part of this, anybody with any semblance of sense would not take a gun to a protest, if you want to even call it a protest, right? Especially a protest where you're protesting armed people that are known as law enforcement officers. No, they're ICE. Right. Now, again, the idea is I wouldn't do it exactly the way they're doing it, and a lot of the officers wouldn't do it exactly the way they were doing it, but they have to because they're not president, right? Or is crony there? What's that ugly mug? What's that guy called? Miller. Man, we love to hate. So, whoever laughed into the mind, say, God, Hashem put, Satan laughing spreads his wings. I'm psycho. I'm open channels. That's how they can get me. But if I close my channels, then I can't help people. So we won't be closing those channels. So again, they're protesting you based upon some ruling years ago that they could actually film you silently. See the mission creep? Right. Agreed, Larry. Again, the noise, you have to explain this to the courts. You have to find experts. I'm going to have to write to somebody. Make sure you get the information. I don't know why it won't turn off. It's weird. Well, you have to get psychological experts. Again, your officers are supposed to be better than that, but again, nobody is actually. Nobody can be. It'll affect you at some point in some way. So what you're doing is you're trying to make decisions, life and death decisions, while these people are engaged in activity that disrupt the ability to make life and death decisions. So there's psychological geniuses, psychological operation geniuses. Could be former CIA or something. I know they can't talk about it, can they? But there's probably somebody out there that runs, psychological methods, instruction, or education. It's probably even in a college course somewhere. They probably have been in a college course somewhere. Probably a psychology course. You can get a psychologist. Yeah, you get a psychologist that's been in the military, not that loser that works for the FBI and cheats. But you need a psychologist that can explain it. Right. Well, because what you're asking, what the court is asking of the officers is being thwarted by the protesters, but they're not protesters. That's why you're not allowed to do that. Right. There are limited places where a person can protest. And that came, I believe, from the Supreme Court Chief Justice. At least his face was on. But it could have been the whole court, a majority of the court. I don't know. Right. And those limitations are specified what? By law. Right. That's the point. There's laws that say that can't be protest. There's no liberation you're looking for. Like I said, the majority of these people are not to be here. They're not going to add to our country. They're going to take away. Even if they're quote unquote hardworking. There's just no way to prosecute all those people that we need to prosecute. Again, money laundering. They don't think anything of money laundering. Doesn't mean nothing to them. Right. There's a lot of money launderers that we got rid of. Well, I had this quick big business and a house. They stopped showing us the houses they were living in. Everybody's like, what the hell? How'd they get that house? I barely got my apartment. Right. Well, they're money launderers, man. So you got to remember, money laundering is also in construction. Money laundering is in real estate. Money laundering is in handyman, that kind of stuff. They use some of those. Like you used to open up a business and, you trickle your drug money in or your buddy's drug money. Right. So Home Depot probably ended up from something like how it turned corrupt. And again, a lot of the immigrants were there anyway. Right. So you just again, the best thing you could ever be is a correctional officer, because you can tell that explains to you how devious people are. And I admit some of it isn't really devious; it's just very inventive. But they have an intelligence to take something like Home Depot and turn it into a narcotics smuggling operation, and what is the other thing? An extortion operation, right? And they can cook, boy. People in prison. Most of them were Colombian, I guess. The Italians had their stuff, of course, spaghetti. But Colombians I don't know, used to get the cuts of meat and they cook it up with spices, adobo. And I guess it was Colombian. Maybe some Mexicans, too. What are Jamaicans known for? Smoking cigars and playing dominoes. They were enjoyable, a lot of men. Some people, when they get caught, they do they got money on the outside, like back in Jamaica. So they don't care. They just got to do their time. That sucks, but they know when they're done, they're done. Go back to the good life. So they just kind of gamble. Right. Maybe get high. I'm sure they got high. The Rasta guys, I'm sure they got high somewhere. The Rastafarians never gave me trouble. The actual Rastafari, because they go, they'd sing their songs in their little Rastafarian room. But they never get. They look at me funny, but they never give me any trouble. I think it was because they were too high, Now they had heroin in there and everything. Our first overdose death was like, all right, that was a big one. But then we started finding they were throwing tennis balls over. Now they do the drones, Back then they used to just throw tennis balls over with the narcotics inside the tennis ball. Right. And then they go out on rec and pick up the tennis ball. Right. We had an open compound anyway on that place. Well, it was split in half. It was difficult to manage because it was so many of them and it was open compound. The largest prison, I think, at that time. Well, I never forget the lieutenant I was sitting there, I had like 300 and something of them, and I called the lieutenant. I said, Lieutenant, they're Breaking Bad, and he just wouldn't answer me on a radio. So I'm like, I handled it, and I stood in front of each one. I said, all right, give me a name. Give me a name. And as I would say that, they would peel off and go inside. And then I get halfway down the line of people, and I turn around, and the lieutenant's like peeking around the corner of the building. Send me no backup. It's like 300 and something of them in there. But if you're not a jerk, it's easy. People that were jerks got urine and crap thrown on them. It's not necessary. It's like, okay, you really think this list, you have to manage it that tight? They can't have 2 containers to make, muscle milk. They can have 2 containers. But when they're a jerk, then they only have 1 or maybe 0. Right. The list is just to manage them. So if you give them an extra container let them have an extra container for muscle milk, then they're obligated to you, And then if they do the wrong thing, you take it, and then they understand. Right? You can manage the world that way too. But you're all jerks, so it don't work. Right? Well, it's a lot of false premises. They can't protest an active law enforcement operation. They can't stalk law enforcement officers just because they're ICE and say they're protesting. It doesn't exist. Right? If they enforce the stalking laws in Minnesota, they'd all be arrested. The state stalking laws. There's even a law enforcement obstruction law that applies to the federal government that the state can enforce. But you're not allowed to, like, it's Minnesota actually has probably the tightest public what do they call it, public safety, I guess, the tightest public safety protection laws, because most states don't cover feds or like certain process servers. They cover everybody. Right. Let them get the 911 tapes and find somebody called on Mrs. Good. Right. Or anybody else that gets shot. So that guy was wrong. You don't take your gun to a protest. But I wouldn't if I were, even if I was even if I was like what would I be by now? The director of the Marshal Service. Even if I was director of the Marshal Service. See, they knew that. I didn't know that. I was just going to be a deputy, maybe get some executive protection time. Right. So even if I was the director of the Marshal Service and I wanted to go to a protest, I wouldn't carry my gun. Right. So again, even having it at a protest is wrong, and then pulling it out is even worse. And actually, you gave fuel. That guy gave fuel to ICE. They're going to try to cover it up, and say, "Oh, you shot him! You shot him!" Right. That shows you people have guns there, and they're willing to pull it out. Why the hell would he even pull it out? I mean, you're just allowing them to work themselves into a frenzy. You need to stop them. The state is at fault. The city is at fault for not enforcing the laws that are there to keep them from getting into a frenzy. Right. I mean, I don't know what he thought he was going to do. They're like, you know what? I don't even think it's that. I don't think they have the ability to think. I think these are just like idiots. Useful idiots for politicians that want to protect themselves from prosecution at this point. Didn't start that way, but something. Oh, maybe it did. Who knows? Maybe that's why they're out there. But it doesn't make any sense. Why are you going to go there with a gun and pull a gun? You're just an idiot. He's not going to go down in history as the guy that was saving the immigrants. He's going to go down in history as a crook that's stupid. Right. But he was a nurse. How many nurses have we arrested for killing patients? Large numbers of patients. Oh, but they're nurses. Matter of fact, FBI needs to scan that guy's history. maybe one of our hospital murderers, right? My daddy killed like 15 elderly people over the last 5 years, injecting them with something, right? Although I still am grateful for the nurses. When I was in Oklahoma, I had like a obstruction. I don't think he can't say nothing. Once they put you in a hospital, doctor isn't going to tell you shouldn't have been admitted. Right. But when the real doctor came in there, he was acting funny. And I'm thinking, I'm not even supposed to be here. Right. Give me an enema or something. I think that's what it was. Right. The guy thought he saw a twisted valve, and I don't think this guy felt that way. Right? Well, because they put this tube down, right? And it was nothing difficult, believe me. Like when it cleared, he was confident. It was too confident and too quick. Right. Right. He put a tube down me, and then he put that stuff in there, like the laxative or whatever, and it just went. That was it. It was over. So I don't even think they needed the tube in there. Right. They didn't try anything else. And he's like, well, if I admit you, I was going to have to go from Oklahoma City to like Miami, Oklahoma, because there was no hospital. Because admitting from the emergency room, that's the only way they could do it. But he said, he did give me a tip. He said, go over to the hospital and tell them what's going on, and then they'll admit you, because they have to. Otherwise, they got to call an ambulance and drive you to Miami, Oklahoma. But I stayed. That's when they went into my van. And it wasn't a simple theft. It was deep state. And they stole my internet access. I had one of those little... I wasn't even using it, I don't think, at the time. It was like a 4G MiFi. They probably tried to sign on. When I called Verizon, they said they can't even use it. It's not even... They can't... You can't even activate it. It's that old. Right? But I'm sure that's what they thought. They probably got paid for it. Turned it in. They said, fine, great. We'll try to get online and do something with his internet access. All right. So, yeah, it's a shame. And it's just going to keep happening until we go back to the normal law enforcement where you all don't allow people to do that. The immigrants have to get out of here. It's Biden's fault. It's the Democrats' fault that they're all here. They have to get out of here. They were on parole. They weren't guaranteed a day here. You're all putting that shit in their head and making them break bad and act out. Right. You got people that are protected by DACA that probably shouldn't be protected by DACA. That's fine. But you're not going to mission creep that one. Right. Oh, but they were here. They stepped over the border. And we let them stay here. Right. I was the DACA guy. I said, yeah, sounds like a good argument. But I thought you were going to, control it. Like, they have to actually, give you a statement of facts, how they believe they ended up here, who was involved with if they know. Right. Because a crime was committed. That's the reason. Not because, you're such a little boy and you stepped over the border. Ooh. It's not that. It's the fact that somebody brought them over to the United States while they were a minor and abused them. It's child abuse to do that, to illegally enter the United States and then bring the child. The child is being abused. Okay. So that was the real theory that I was working on. The child was abused when they were a kid. They were brought here illegally, forced to commit a crime by a parent or an uncle or a coyote, whoever it was. Look, deep state squandered my family, my life. I could give a shit about your complaints, okay, all of you, and how mean I am and how nice all of you are. Right. Well, stay peaceful. Praise God in all that you do. Praise God.